Who came here wanting to take steps needed to solve problems now? Anybody? Then I'm about to become the least popular person in the world. Because you're not going to solve your problems by taxing millionaires. In fact, you're not going to get a progressive income tax. How do I know this? Before Governor Rauner was sworn in, the Democrats had a supermajority in the Senate, they had a supermajority in the House, and they had the governor. And we tried to pass legislation to put it on a ballot for you to vote for a progressive income tax. Not only didn't we have a majority in the House to get that done, we didn't even have 40 votes. You need 3/5 of the House. So while I think it would be great public policy to get a progressive income tax, in fact my organization has it as core to its mission, if you wait for that to happen in Illinois, you will lose 2 or 3 generations of low-income children. You willing to do that? All right, no. So what's it take to solve our problems? Number one, the state does have to contribute more to education. It can't do that without raising more in tax revenue. And if you're going to raise more in tax revenue legislatively without requiring a constitutional amendment, here are the 2 things you need to do. You need to jack up the income tax rate from its current level of 3.75% to 5%, maybe now 5.2%. Every percentage point increase in our income tax rate in Illinois raises $3.4 billion net to the state. That's the first thing you have to do. Number 2, we have to expand our state sales tax base to include consumer services. Things like haircuts and lawn care, bowling, and those things. Right now, of the 45 states in America that have a sales tax, Illinois taxes less of the modern economy than any other state. Less. Why? Our sales tax applies to goods only, pretty much, not services. Newsflash. 73% of our economy in Illinois today, 73% is the sale of services. That's what we don't tax. Only 17% is the sale of goods. That's what we do tax. You just can't leave the largest and fastest growing segment of your economy virtually entirely out of your tax base and expect to have adequate revenue to fund services. So how much do we need to raise in tax revenue at the state level for the state to play its part? A lot. The state probably needs to raise in the neighborhood of 7 to 8 billion with a B dollars in new revenue to put itself on a path to fiscal solvency. Now, when I was a kid, $7 billion was a lot of money. You look at it in context of the Illinois economy, however, and it's not. We have a $745 billion economy. This is 1%. It's a tax increase that only takes, in total, increasing the income tax, expanding the sales tax base, only takes 1% of our economic activity. That is so small, it cannot even be measured by any peer-reviewed econometric model that looks at whether your taxes will hurt your economy. It's too small. Now, the bad news in what I just said is you're paying more of those taxes. It's not just going to be millionaires because our Constitution requires it to be a flat rate. The good news is we can pass it legislatively within the year. And we can start raising the revenue we need for the state of Illinois to make an adequate investment in K-12 education. Now, what would be adequate? Yes, we do need to change our school funding formula. Our current one is based on nothing. It's not based on one cost of actually educating children. In fact, our current starting point for K-12 education is a political judgment reached between a governor and a General Assembly on how much the state's bankrupt fiscal system can afford to give to K-12, looking at the other demands on the tax revenue that go to the state's general fund. Do you want to know what those other demands are? 9 out of $10 in the general fund go to 4 things: education, health care, social services, and public safety. So, When you have a bankrupt state fiscal system, when we are bankrupt, we are running an accumulated deficit right now. It's going to be about 10 billion. We only spend about 24 billion on services. Do the math, that's big. It's projected to grow to 15 billion this year. All right? We don't have adequate revenue to fund those 4 core services. If the state tries to do a little bit more for K-12, what's going to get cut? Healthcare, social services, and public safety. Because that's where 9 out of $10 go. Is it really a positive thing to cut social services for vulnerable populations so that we can educate our kids? It's outrageous. This is the 5th richest state and the richest nation in the world, and we're talking about cutting social services to fund schools. When a tax increase taking only 1% of our economy solves our problem.